I make a motion to,
By Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter to allow Mrs. Sullivan Smoot to participate virtually.
Mr. Gaylor?
Yes.
Ms. Alger? Yes. Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter?
yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Alger? Yes. Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Gaylor?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes. Please pause for a minute of silence as we prepare for the meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Fox, do you have any agenda changes or additions?
I do not.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Painter and a second by Ms. Alger to approve the agenda as presented.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Gaylor?
Yes.
Ms. Alger? Yes. Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes. Can I have a motion to certify personnel matters discussed in closed meeting?
Make a motion to certify personnel matters discussed in closed meeting, section 2.2-3711A1.
Second.
A motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter to approve to certify personnel matters discussed in closed session.
Dr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Gaylor?
Yes.
Ms. Alger? Yes. Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes. Need any?
Yeah.
There's one written citizen comment. The minutes from September and October are posted for review. Can I have a motion to approve the personnel action in the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the personnel action in the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Grubler to approve personnel action in consent agenda.
Mr. Gaylor?
Yes.
Ms. Alger? Yes. Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes. Mr. Kale and Mr. Simmons, the PCHS softball field updates.
Good evening, everyone. Do you guys have a copy of do we have a picture of? Okay. Okay, currently, as most of you know, that Page County High School has a pretty rich history in softball, and we've got a very nice facility. Well, we were approached not too long ago about doing an upgrade to that facility. And if you look at the pictures here, the one on the right is currently at Turner Ashby High School. That's a covered softball batting cage and pitching area that can be used. On the left is what Page County High School currently has. And what we've been approached with is an upgrade of those facilities And on the left-hand side, we would mirror what's going to be on the right-hand side, obviously without the TA at the bottom. So one of the questions that had come up is what's going to be the dimensions of that. So the dimensions are going to be, once completed, would be 35 feet by 65 feet. Currently at 25 by 50, so it would be a bigger area. As you can see there again, there's 3 areas, again, for pitching and batting, and the one on the right-hand side indicates that. So one of the things that that was asked is where the funds are going to be coming from. So if you look on the next slide, Mr. Jerry Carter, who is a friend of Page County High School, has come to us with an opportunity at no cost to the division with his company with phase, again, I say phase 1, but there's not really a phase 2 at this time. But with phase 1, I'm going to create a covered pavilion, and some friends of Page County softball, Arthur Campbell and Dennis Zimmerman, to do labor and work with some supplying some of those items that we will need. Again, it's for a nonprofit organization. There's a couple of things that they have asked that we do once the project is completed. One of the things would be to hold almost like a press conference and an open house. Open house would be in the opening of the softball season that weekend. Again, kind of showcase the work and what the new facility or new opportunity that we would have would look like. And again, that would take place in the first weekend of softball. So that's what we're looking at. Question's going to be, when would they start? As soon as possible. The goal would be to hopefully be finished by the time softball season starts. First games start in the early part of March. So that's what the goal would be. I'd ask Mr. Simmons to step forward if he's got anything else to add.
And so you can see on the next slide, we talk about the things that we got to finish up from the last time that we had met. The sound system in softball, we had addressed that in our previous meeting. In order to make sure we're being equitable to all the facilities, softball would get an upgraded sound system. That's actually not going to occur until the lights are installed, and I think you guys have been able to review that project. The sound system company did ask to kind of cable up to the new light poles to put the speakers there. Also, we're going to finish the previous project with windows in the press box, and we will be using no school vision phones for any of them. And that's basically it. And like Mr. Kill said, any future funding for the softball project will be coordinated by Mr. Carter. I think for those of you who've been around a while, I do believe he's the person who spearheaded the last construction that occurred at the softball facility, with the fence and the upgraded press box for the softball. Any questions?
Okay, so slide 3 mentions may require some local funding matches. When you say that, it's not division.
Yes, that's correct. What Mr. Carter is saying is, what he wanted to make sure was clear is that phase 1 is not going to be any pass a hat or business support, but any future phases would probably need some support locally from either businesses or fundraisers through the softball program.
And then the last slide mentions creating equitable facilities at your 3 main outdoor competition areas. So I know that Luray High School doesn't have an active softball team right now, but I know some kiddos coming on up that soon they will. So then is it going to be on the burden of the board to make sure they have the same, or?
So as far as I knew, they're getting the light suit, correct?
But I'm talking about this pavilion with,
They don't have batting cages right now. I don't think, do
I
they?
think your reference in here in terms of equitability was within your campus, right?
Just up there.
R3.
but see, I represent both.
Right?
I'm the 3. I have
Well,
both people.
and I think it goes back to the discussion that we had last time. Luray opted to go for the upgraded scoreboard, whereas I upgraded the press box. I think it's one of those things where obviously both programs, both schools, like we talked about in the past, have great facilities, but different needs. So, Blue Ray had upgraded sound system in their gymnasium before I did. So it's kind of one of those things where I think Mr. Aylers and I do a good job communicating what our needs are to you guys or our booster clubs, and we go from there, and I would say I've been impressed with the upgrades that they've done to their facilities, and I know he's been very complimentary with the upgrades we've done to ours. And I think both of our fan bases are very happy with what Mr. Aylers and I have been accomplished last year.
Till they see your pavilion.
Well, but again, like Mr. Kill started with, obviously the softball program is one of our flagship programs at Page. And there is a big, one of the things that we talked about when we met last week on this was there is a big rec program as well. So this might give us an opportunity to outreach further beyond just our program. So.
Thank you. Ms. Sechrist, monthly financials.
Yes, good evening, Board. You all have been provided with the monthly financial report for October, where the expenditures and revenue were $3,367,297.45. Along with that, you've been provided with the local match that we did balance with the treasurer's office. If you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Okay, so I don't have any questions on this, but I almost feel like we need to introduce her and the fellow on the board.
I'm going to do it in my update for you.
Gotcha, because, yeah.
So, and we're going to introduce Ms.
Okay.
Ms. Aldridge.
We good? Thank you. Dr. Johnson, Human Resources and Business Operations update?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, members of the board. We provided just a little update on two main topics, and I actually would just like to give you a third update at the end of that. But as you know, we've been excited about the launch of the LifeSpot app, which is the safety and security app that all of our staff will be able to access. We hope it's something we never use, but we'll be very pleased to have access to it should we ever need it. And just an update on that, today, actually, we celebrated, we had some donations from both the Town of Luray Police Foundation as well as the Page County Sheriff's Office Foundation. Some community folks supported those foundations, and they made a very generous contribution that will go a long way in this next year's use of this app. So we were super excited at the generosity of those folks. We are well underway with the launch of this app. Actually, a week today, November 17th, we will begin our first official training, and that's going to be a train-the-trainer model in which myself, Mr. Runyon, Ms. Pettit, and Ms. Owens are going to be trained. The four of us were the four that attended the national conference at Virginia Beach, National Threat Assessment Conference a couple of weeks ago, and those three individuals have agreed to join me as kind of a division-wide safety team. Mr. Williams and Mr. Bell have been very active on the facility side over the last year or two, but to have a few more administrators that can take the lead in a variety of ways. And so we're going to go through the train-to-trainer process with LifeSpot next week. And what will occur then is we're actually going to do it here at the school board office, and we will go through the drill mode. Everybody will be taught how to use the app, and then we will actually drill it. And then they'll allow us to sit down and view the commander view and what did it look like on a scale when some folks in this building activated the app, and did somebody go out the back door, did somebody lock down, those kinds of things. So that's going to be the nature of that training. We are then in the process of scheduling with principals building-specific training that will be very similar. LifeSpot tells me that's about a 30 to 45-minute training, and similar as I just described, where staff will be guided on how to set the app up, how to use the app, then we'll drill, and then they'll come back and they'll get to review how it went, what we saw, and that kind of thing. So LifeSpot has been very proactive. From their point, they are anxious for us to get this in place sooner than later. I've been really pleased with that. They've not been hounding us for money. They've been hounding us to get it started because they believe in that product and what it can do in case of crisis. So that's been good to work with those folks. The role then that myself and the other three division folks will play would be in the makeup sessions, because I submitted a head count to LifeSpot last week. We're over 600 people. When you think about full-time staff, you think about drivers, you think about coaches, anybody, any staff member, you know, that is going to be on premises as an employee, they need to have this app and they need to be trained. So we know that there'll be people missing in some of those early trainings, and so then we'll be in a position to follow up and catch up and try to cover everybody as quickly as we can. And as soon as we get these trainings behind us, then we will be moving into implementation phase and going live with it. Are there any questions on that progress? Okay, great.
Thank you.
On the facility side, Mr. Bell's been working on this with me. We were approached several months ago, actually now, about the consideration of a rooftop solar array. And the folks that approached us were interested in placing solar panels on a roof, not on the ground itself. And Dr. Fox and Mr. Bell and I have all explored this. I've been in ongoing communication with Shenandoah Valley Electric Company and John Sisler, looking at our historical bills. If we do this, and we really, tonight, it's informational for you to consider whether this is a direction we would want to go or not. The technical center might be a good place to try this out. And the reason, for me anyway, one of the selling points to that is not so much the savings in money, but the opportunity for our electricity students to get involved in something like this. I think this, in many ways, is tomorrow's industry, or one of tomorrow's industries. But we've been, at least one company has suggested that if we put these arrays, and I put a picture there of what it would look like, you really wouldn't be able to see much from the ground level. And you think that building sits on a hill. The health sciences building there to the right, you wouldn't be able to see that at all. And then the main building, again, it's difficult to see up on the roof when you're around those grounds. But a setup such as that, we've been told, could yield as much as $9,500 a year in electrical savings for the technical center. The one company so far that has offered, and this would have to go out to RFP, and you know, the information that I have is coming from a company that's approached us, but they would have to bid it out just as everybody else of interest would, and then we go from there. But the information preliminarily is that you would be looking at a design life of about 40 years. And when we put this out to bid, if that's the direction you all would like to go, we would be looking for a company that would build, manage, and design. So it would be no cost to Page County Schools at all. The only thing, and Mr. Williams has been involved in discussion on this as well, the only thing we have to be very careful about is our roof condition. If you put these things on a roof, you don't want to put them on a roof that needs to be replaced in 5 or 10 years. Because if you do, you've got to pull them down. Some companies talk about using this money in conjunction with a re-roof or a new roof, because you can take that and put it right back into the project. It's a little bit like our Johnson Controls model from years gone by. But that's a presentation that we wanted to make tonight for reference. And Dr. Painter may know more about this than I do. I know Rockingham County is underway with a project at Broadway High School. And Shenandoah University, the company that reached out to us, has been involved with these folks, with Rockingham, with Shenandoah. Mr. Bell reached out to Bedford County Schools. They had a state RFP that can be used. So it wouldn't be recreating the wheel there. So we bring that to you tonight just to kind of gauge your interest. If you'd like to sit on it, you can. If you say, hey, nothing lost, if you all want to put out an RFP, we really just want to bring it to the table tonight.
I'd kind of be interested in what our roof condition is first. I mean,
Timmy has weighed in on that. We're in very good shape right now with that roof. Yeah, we've already done that to make sure.
Well, I mean, you made it something about the view of it.
I was on the planning commission when this whole solar farm thing got started. And most people were supportive of things on a roof. You know, now maybe Mr. Cooper and the Park Service folks might down that.
That's small scale,
Small scale, right, small scale,
under 100 acres.
yeah. But for this here, I mean, citizens have been supportive, at least they were.
I'm in,
Is that a flat roof? That they'd be at a tilt, so you still would see them?
Yeah, you'd be able to see. So for instance, so I was telling Dr. Fox, the main building, there's actually solar panels up there currently that were put in 10 years ago when Mr. Lynn was still here. And you have no idea they're up there because it's flat and you can't see them. And they kind of a thing of the past. I'm not sure who knew they were up there anymore. It's a very small panel. But yeah, those roofs don't have such a pitch that they're gonna be noticeable.
Even if you can see them, they really don't look that bad. They're kind of pretty, they glisten when the sun hits them on houses. It's kind of nice.
no different than a chicken house.
That smell better.
What we would propose is that we go ahead and work towards an RFP. We can put that out. Nothing lost, but that allows companies to consider it. You all still, at the end of the day, reserve the right to accept an RFP or say, no, thank you.
That sounds good.
Like,
Are you asking for our consent to do that?
Yes, sir.
I'm fine with it.
I have my,
It's still a long process.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I love the educational component too. I think that would be, there's a lot of jobs for that now.
Right, and that's what better place than at the technical center where the electricity 1 and electricity 2 students, and that's something that we will say to any company that wants to participate in this. There has to be an educational component for those electricity students. I wouldn't personally be interested in doing this without that.
Or even beyond that, they can wait for data that generates, that could be used by anybody, whether you're at the tech center or not.
the cost of these, in terms of efficiency and getting your money back, is improving every year. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that we'll see this kind of thing. It's maybe the 2 high schools within the next 5 years. Maybe a large version of this.
I will say Mr. Sisler was wonderful at Timber Valley Electric and said to me, if you all go down this road, I'll help you. I'll look over specs, I'll look at your bills and what people are suggesting. He's pretty familiar with it, obviously, with his position. So that's encouraging to have somebody that knows that side of things to be able to support us. The only other thing I have that's not on the slide is this just happened today, so I thought I would give you a quick update. The CRG mapping project, we actually got all the proofs today. They are fantastic. Right now, the principals are reviewing them and custodial staff. Mr. Williams and I are going to lock out some time on Monday to do the same. But we are literally an eyelash away now of signing off that the proofs are accurate and they will be ready to be launched for law enforcement and schools and all involved. They are amazing. The things you can see at a glance. Where are the AEDs? Where's the electric shut-off? Where's the gas shut-off? I was thrilled with the quality of them. So we have them and we're just proofing them as of today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Ryman, instructional update?
That's right. Real quick, remember I did give you my last copy? I'm not going to, can I have that back? Sorry. Yes, I need to read it. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. I like Dr. Painter was gonna feel a little awkward and say, welcome to this. Even though it's joining us, it's good to have you. All right, so an instructional update this evening. I'm going to start with a little celebration there on our second slide. 2 little celebrations. So we recently had some grant awards received within the division. I wanted to pass along to you. So the Virginia Beta New chapter of Alpha Delta Kappa has often put forth a grant opportunity, because they call it a teacher mini grant for staff. They did that about a month ago, and I would say we had 3 to 4 folks submit applications for that. And that was recently awarded to Shenandoah Elementary for $400. They're going to put that towards a trip of taking their students to the John C. Wells Planetarium at JMU. So they're very excited about that. And then the second one there, that picture's hot off the press today. Luray High School was visited there. You can see by Speaker Todd Gilbert. This was an opportunity that actually came to me in late August from his office. They said, we have some STEM monies that we're really targeting middle and high schools. We'd love to give some to one of your programs. And Paige, what are you doing working on STEM, or what do you want to work on? So both middle, both high, and our ITRT submitted a brief little statement of some projects they had in mind. And in conjunction with Pharma, that's who awarded the grant, they presented Luray High today with a check for $2,500 to work on developing a hydroponic aquaponic system that they would like to. Really exciting things. All right, so to dig in a little bit about some instructional things that are happening, and quite frankly, are always happening and ongoing, but one of the things we've been talking about are the structures that we have in place for our instructional program. So this little flow chart, excuse the crude arrows, that was the best I could get them to bend. That was the best Canva would do for me. Up there at the division level, you can see it looks linear, but I put those in there on purpose because this is not a linear structure in any shape or form. It's truly cyclical. But at the division level, those of us who work here at the central office and division level staff out and about in the schools, our responsibilities are outlining and guiding instructional programs. That's what we help do and help facilitate that through providing PD and mentors and doing observations both formally and informally. And in doing so, that allows us to directly support principals and APs and leading that work at their school, taking that charge and in the conjunction with the teams they even have that I didn't mention, their leadership teams and such, to deliver the work. And then obviously then supporting teachers down to the classroom level. As a little side note there, the school improvement piece, is necessary as needed, depending upon where our schools are performing at. So we work again really closely with principals individually. We have our monthly monitoring meetings, monthly principals meetings. And what that allows is a flow of communication to help everyone collaborate really well. Not only is information going down that channel, if you will, but in all of those processes, that's allowing it to circulate back up and address things as we need to. That's the cyclical nature of that. So I shared that because that's going to speak to a couple of specific things I wanted to share with you tonight. So October 28th, kind of feels like forever ago, but it was really only a couple of weeks, I think now. Everything's fine. October 28th, part of that PD day was set at the schools in the morning for the principals, along with the support of their leadership team, to take their staff through a really deep data dive. And we have talked frequently about accreditation and those reports. And quite honestly, as a previous core teacher, I know very well it can often feel like the onus of that falls on your math, your English, your science, your social studies teachers. And that's not really the case because we're all working together and that belongs to everyone. So they spent that morning, yes, looking at that accreditation report closely, but also attendance data, discipline data, anything else they had in their schools they thought was relevant. Many of our principals do their own little surveys to kind of gauge climate and to gauge how people are feeling from time to time. So they brought all of that to the table with the guidance that we had suggested they go through to get at this collaborative effort to adjust their goals, both short-term and long-term. Those two comments you see, so thus the road, we're going to them all the way out, short-term goals and long-term. The two comments, they aren't necessarily direct quotes, but as we regrouped at our principals meeting about a week or two after this, that was a really great time for all of the principals to share how that went and doing that with their staff and just get ideas from each other. And those are just a couple of comments that principals made at that time. So it was a worthwhile venture. Again, some of those folks, like I mentioned, that their particular role isn't something that's assessed on an accreditation report, had never seen one of those in its entirety. So it was very eye-opening and helpful experience for them. Another event, I had mentioned that we were going to be doing academic reviews with our schools that are in improvement. So as a little kind of update on where that is, just yesterday, we held the team of participants there. You can see we had Ms. Dodson, principal, Ms. McGarry, the instructional coach, and our instructional team here at the central office, along with Dr. Fox. We met, it took us quite a few hours to go through, and I gave you an example. The staple packet is not the whole thing that the state provides, but it gives you some insight into what that's like. So essentially, the tools that you use, like the first one referenced here, and I'm a color coder, so it's pink, is instructional leadership. This is one of the tools you're supposed to walk through. And at the top in the bullets, you can see where it outlines the types of artifacts or evidence that brings to the table. So Ms. Dotson and Ms. McGarry gathered their collection of artifacts from LES, classroom observations, lesson plans, data on their students, various things for us to work through these. Years ago, one of my first experiences with this many moons ago was when the State Department would come out and do these with you and would lead them. And there's been a kind of a shift over time because those, as you can imagine, those could be quite intimidating settings. Sometimes it was productive, sometimes it wasn't as productive because that created a little bit of a barrier to the conversation. So the approach with these is, because we're able to do these in-house now, it was just that group of folks that you see there. Our goal is to identify findings and just have really open, no judgment related conversation. Let's look at the artifacts to see what's truly here, not what I think, not what I feel, what can I show, what can I demonstrate, and what needs to be, what can we improve on? So that was a really good conversation. We went through multiple different tools for Lorraine. I'll give you a little example because I don't want to say too much because I know Ms. Dodson is still processing and hasn't had a chance yet to go back to her staff. But one of the things we really ended up talking a good bit around through working through this guidance was something that frequently comes up for all schools, and that's alignment to standards. And are we aligning lesson plans? Are we assessing in a way that's genuinely aligned and genuinely to the rigor of what's expected? I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that. Okay, so this one's really busy, but here's where I'm going with that alignment piece. So back up one step, and we've talked frequently about our involvement with the CIP cohort and how being a part of that cohort helps provide us with common pacing and common benchmark assessments, so that if Dr. Johnson and Ms. Sechrist and I are all teaching the same grade level, we're given the same assessment, it's apples to apples comparison as much as possible with different student populations. So on the right there is a little screenshot. I just picked the English 4 pacing guide, and teachers use that over the quarter. Some of those skills you can see there throughout the year, and teachers use that to guide their pacing. How they go about doing that is probably going to look a little different in every classroom. But then when they get to the end of the quarter, they all give this common benchmark, which we use our Mastery Connect online platform. And the key to this, though, is sometimes you say the word assessment, that can make people anxious too. This is genuinely meant to be formative, meaning it's not evaluative for a teacher or students. It's to see where they are and what do they know in this moment. The goal is not to stop and review for days ahead of time to make sure we're ready and we do the best we can. We applaud that if that happens. But the bigger piece to that is to be reflective and look and see what that data is telling us. So as a division, back in that cycle of things, what we have asked them to do is be reflective using a specific document that allows them to look at that alignment based on those questions and to evaluate each question for possible misconceptions or to see where student needs are. And I just threw in 2 examples here real quick. These weren't actually CIP questions because I'm not allowed to see them. Next slide. But when Mr. Kalen and we're talking about their softball, this one, I was like, I got that one set up, all right. So this question, as you can see, this was a middle school math question about area. This is what's called a TEI question, technology enhanced. So obviously the students would have to know what area is, and they're supposed to pick from those choices, which 2 measurements could that be? Hope they pick 8 and 7, right? But they might not. So if I'm the teacher and going through this reflective process, and if a good half of my students picked 20 and 8, why did they pick 20 and 8? That tells me something. But if I just look at the score they got on assessment and walk away, even if I'm happy with it, it's not as detailed as getting down. So they pick 20 and 8, I'm going, okay, they're confusing area and perimeter still, and I know what I need to do. Maybe I need to readdress that and reteach it to the whole group, depending on how many, or I can pull a small group aside and remediate that. Also share that one in the point to the rigor, because sometimes we think, okay, well, the students know area and perimeter. You put a drawing in front of them, they might be able to do that. But this is a little different. It's a twist on the way the question's asked. And that alone is enough sometimes to be pleased. One more example there. This is a reading passage. Students will be given those, of course, on the computer screen. It's spread out so you can see at the bottom. This is just screen 2 of 5 that the students would read the entire passage. And this question is directing them back to paragraph 7, asking them which of those terms is the author establishing. So again, right, that's pretty vocabulary laden question right there. If they're not successful on that, then that's telling them to revisit those topics. So that's the purpose of that CIP disaggregation tool, and part of the way that we use the data and work with the schools to visit. This last one related to that, a lot of information here, but one thing that's valuable with the CIP cohort is these particular charts can be used as guideposts. So this one is from the English 4 benchmarks, and that first chart on the left says English 4 first. That means the first benchmark. So I'm a teacher, my students have just taken that assessment, and I see that most of them seem to have scored, let's just say, between 61 to 70%. Okay, so in that left chart, benchmark band, 61 to 70%. I go to the right, what that's telling me is that there's an 87% likelihood that my students are going to score within a passing range on the SOL test. And that's the work that CIP has done over years and years of collecting data with their benchmarks to try to make those predictable measures. Again, they're just guides. There's no guarantee with that, but it's a way to go. One of the things we are being a little cautionary with that right now is because I know recently the governor discussed about his goals for the state in Virginia, and he specifically talked about potentially raising the cut scores for SOL tests. So that's out there. It's something we'll just have to keep our eye on. All right, so last piece is another fun, just celebration piece, and you get to see some pictures of kids, which was much fun. So this was October, I forget the date, it doesn't really matter, but recently, our Title I funding helped support our SEL and kindness initiatives by bringing the Kindness Ninja to each of our elementary schools. The kids had a blast. He uses the fact that he is an amazing black belt to kind of woo the kids in, talking about being ninjas, but in reality, it's really about just how kindness is the best defense you can possibly have. So that one was over at Luray, and you can see the kids were really enjoying it. Okay. Do you all have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Policy update, Dr. Fox.
Yes, so good evening, Board. Tonight, we present to you a first read of an instructional materials review policy. There's two that we're presenting to you, IIA and IIAB, which talks about the supplementary materials with their selection and adoption. So the state code recently reflected that school divisions now have to provide a policy that's very explicit to allow parents to have notification about sexually explicit content that might be in materials that are used in the classroom. So this policy is drafted from VSBA, which is where we take all of our policies from. And there's 4 essential key pieces that we have to work on and identify, and that's we have to be able to identify all of the instructional materials that may contain sexually explicit content, and that's defined for you in the latter part of the
policy, it actually lays out the definitions of what does sexually explicit mean. We are required to then ensure that there's parental notification prior to its use of that material. We have to have a process by which parents can be permitted to review any materials that they would like. And then we have to ensure that we have alternative instructional materials. If a parent says, I don't want my child to participate in that particular activity, we have to have an alternate form of that activity for them. So what you'll see there in the red line versions are the updates and the changes to the current policies. There are some other additional superintendent's regulations that are going to have to be revised and or created in order for us to meet all of these requirements. Those are not being presented to you tonight because they're in process, and we also want to make sure all of this is in alignment with what you all want before we proceed too far down the road with those. So this is, again, just a first read for that information tonight. We'll bring this back to you in December. So in between, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, clarifications, just let us know. Anything else, Ms. Ryman?
No, nothing specific to that, but just reiterate what you said about some regulations then that this might impact, that create a little bit of a snowball effect. So we'll be looking at some of the other things that we have in place and firming up some processes to make sure we're aligned.
Any questions so far on this yet? I know there's a lot to absorb, more to come. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Superintendent's update. Yeah, so thank you. Good evening, board. And so we do want to make a few introductions that we're excited about tonight. First, we want to welcome Ms. Alger as our new District 1 board member. So welcome to you. We're excited to have you on board. Look forward to your contribution.
She's our new kindness ninja. I'm trying to be.
We're also very, very excited to have one of our 3 student representatives that we have approved. One is here tonight. Jackson Morris is online with us, and then Marta Milam is the 3rd. She will be joining us next month. But I just want to do a quick introduction of Summer, let you guys know a little bit about her. Jackson is aware that I'm going to do his introduction next month when he's here. I felt it would be better to do when he's here in person. So we're not intentionally excluding him. He is currently traveling with the FCCLA, thank you, FCCLA, sorry, in Ohio for their Knowledge Bowl. So we wish him luck on that, but he is listening and online with us tonight. So we commend him for that effort. And again, when Marta finishes her class, she'll join us next month. So Summer, to talk more about her, she's currently a junior at Luray High School. She's a student who participates in the Massanutten Regional Governor's School. She's also a member of the Luray High School girls volleyball. And good luck on Saturday as you guys compete in state quarterfinals, right? She has been instrumental in beginning a new student council association at Luray High School. They're in their first year of that. And she's been instrumental in that, giving kids a voice at the school through the student council action. She is a Virginia High School League debate semifinalist in 2021 and 22. So we're looking to see a 23 added to that. She's in the Spanish National Honor Society and the Junior National Honor Society, where she's also served as the president for the chapter at Luray High School. She's attended leadership conferences for Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, or CADCA. She's a grant winner through our Youth Page Alliance for Community Action through YPACA. And I think you guys might recognize her because she was one of the students that presented to us last year for the grant that was won by YPACA. Through this position, Summer hopes to strive to communicate with the entire student body and to gain an understanding of the students' needs and wants. So Summer, we welcome you and we look forward to your contributions on the board as well. And then Jackson and Marta will do a similar introduction. You guys will see them next month when they're here in person with us. All right, if you could just jump ahead to the slides for me. Yep. One more. Okay, thank you. Just a quick COVID update. We're actually going to talk about other illnesses besides COVID. It's nice to see the state moving green. when it comes to COVID, but if you flip to the next slide, we are currently as a community in our transmission level is low, which is good news. We currently have 9 active cases across the division. However, if you would go to the next slide, we are right now really seeing the impacts of other illnesses. There's definitely lots of flu that is circulating. We are unfortunately also seeing a lot of respiratory viruses such as RSV, strep, and COVID is still there. It is impacting the attendance of our students and our staff at our school. This, you can see those numbers there. It's just some percentages from today's attendance rates. Page Middle School alone had about a quarter of their 8th grade classes out due to illness. That's going to impact us as a division with the chronic absenteeism indicator on our school report cards. However, if you're sick, you're sick. You can't come to school and you shouldn't be coming to school. In the next few days, we are coordinating with Valley Health. I want to commend Dr. Schweitzer. He's been really supportive, and his team in, did I say it wrong? Switzer, sorry, I apologize. He's been really helpful and supportive in providing us with information about what they're doing, because all of this is impacting your healthcare providers in the region. They're becoming overloaded again. It's hard for parents to get appointments to have their children seen, get medications if they need them. So they've revamped some of the things that they're doing. He's given us that information, and once it's all up and running, we're going to push that out on their behalf, because it'll help our parents and our school staff know where to direct people if they need care. So we're grateful for that partnership. We're also going to push out information just reminding everybody to use those key prevention strategies. And Ms. Greenwald, if you back up one slide for me, please. I want to state this publicly, because we need to remember to do this. While COVID seems to be okay, all these other things can be prevented by doing all of the things that we did to try and prevent COVID. So we want to continue to wash our hands and use hand sanitizer. We want to practice that good respiratory etiquette by coughing into our sleeves or into a tissue. Masks are certainly optional. Some are required based on quarantine guidelines, but if you're not feeling well or you're worried that there's a lot of students around you or staff that might be sick, put a mask on. There's no harm in that. If that's what you prefer, it's not required, and I want to reiterate that to everybody. It is not required. We're just recommending it as a strategy should you want to use it. Working with staff to remind them to, as our custodians, as they're circulating the buildings, to wipe down those high-touch areas, doorknobs, faucet handles in restrooms, things like that, desktops, countertops. Stay home when sick, and certainly vaccines and boosters are encouraged. I want to, if you could go to the next slide, please. I really want to encourage parents to help us here. Our nurses are seeing kids that are coming to school sick. And unfortunately, they're then sharing that with others. And I think that's not the only thing impacting our attendance rates, but it's a piece of it. So I really want to encourage our parents. If your child is not feeling well, please keep them home. Don't send them back too soon. We're seeing a little bit of that as well. Or they have to still follow some of those quarantining guidelines. There aren't many left in place, but there are a few if you're COVID positive. And we also just want to recognize for parents, we understand that it's frustrating to get a call from the school nurse to have to come and get your child. That's not fun in the middle of the day if you're at work or you have other obligations. But what I would ask is that you please not take that out on our staff. They're just simply communicating the needs based on where your child is. Their job is to keep everybody in that building safe. And so we would appreciate if you don't take your frustrations out on our staff. Again, they're just doing their job and following the requirements as we set. Just a couple of additional updates for you. Our strategic planning process is underway. We had our first meeting on October the 10th. Where we discussed the roles of that particular committee and what they will and won't be doing. We explored how they can best represent their stakeholder groups. So just to remind everybody, that's teachers, parents, business community members, school board. There's some central office staff. We have different people from some of our classified staff also represented. The committee is about 38 to 40 people, so it's a large committee. But we've tried to touch just about every different stakeholder group that would have a say in this process. They review different strategic plans, including our strategic plan, and sort of did a compare and contrast of those to say these are the things we really liked about these plans we'd like to see in our new plan moving forward. They discussed elements of an effective strategic plan and explored what the continuous improvement process looks like. And then we concluded our meeting with talking about and defining what's the culture and the climate in PCPS that we'd like to see. What are those things that they want to see and feel when their kids are engaging in the classroom, or they're coming in as a guest to our building, or teachers are in front of students? What are the things that they would like? They did have homework that we'll talk about at our next meeting this coming Monday, where we've asked them to take a look at our current mission and vision statements and how that aligns with where we would like to see our division go. Do we keep those mission and vision statements, or do we change and amend them as we move forward? So that'll be a focus of our meeting on Monday. We're also going to walk them through a series of data pieces on Monday so they get an idea of the demographics and the academic and disciplinary and financial pieces of where we are as a division before they start writing the goals moving forward. So any questions about strategic planning? Okay. Budget process is also underway. I can see the excitement radiating off of you that you're happy to talk about budget. Budget templates were sent out to department heads and principals. They've submitted those. Mrs. Seacrest and I have started to review those. We're going to start creating budget priorities for you all based on those requests, and then some of the things that you all have shared. We'll bring you those priorities to talk through with you. We are excited about a meeting that's coming up with the Board of Supervisors on December 6th. Mrs. Gordon and Mrs. Jackie Sullivan-Smoot will be representing you all, meeting with two Board of Supervisors members, Ms. Moeller and myself, Ms. Seacrest and Dr. Johnson. At that meeting, we're going to just talk about the basic budget conversations that we need to have as we look at the FY23. We'll look at capital improvement planning, and then just discussing some other things that we need to bring to their attention of needs that might have developed over the last couple of months. So we're looking forward to that meeting in December with them, and then continuing to have those meetings as we move forward in the budget process. Up for approval for you tonight is the budget calendar. We presented a draft to you at the last meeting. So you'll we look for approval for that tonight, knowing that there may be some changes to that because that's just how the process works sometimes. I want lastly to just wish good luck to all of our teams that are competing this weekend, and I apologize. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody, but we've got the Luray girls volleyball team is traveling down to Pocosin to their quarterfinal, so go Luray. The football team is actually playing right now. They are in their regional quarterfinals against Madison, I believe. And then we certainly want to wish our cross-country boys and girls. They are competing in the state tournament on Saturday in Roanoke. And that's both Paige and Luray students. So we certainly want to wish them good luck as we compete in all of those events. And hopefully everybody stays dry and healthy over the next couple of days. So that's my update for this evening. Any questions that I can answer for you all? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Seacrest, claims for payment?
Yes, good evening again, Board. You all have been provided with the claims for payment where operating fund expenditures were $504,241.27. Food service expenditures, $30,656.91, for total expenditures of $534,898.18. Along with that, you've been given the list of claims as well as the check registers, and if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Make a motion to approve the claims for payment as presented.
A motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Ms. Alger to approve the claims for payment as presented.
Yes, Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Weaver.
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan-Smith.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Seacrest, approve purchase orders over 10,000?
Yes, we have one purchase order this evening for your approval over 10,000. It is for the Stop It app, and it would be using ESSER 3 funds.
Move that we approve the purchase orders over 10,000 as presented.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Gubler and a second by Mr. Painter to approve the purchase order over 10,000.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Weaver.
Yes.
Ms. Alger. Yes. Ms. Sullivan-Smith.
Yes. Ms. Seacrest, again, FY '24 budget calendar.
Yes, good evening, Board. Again, we've brought to you this evening the FY '24 budget calendar. Again, this does have 4 work sessions prior to Board of Supervisor approval, with the superintendent's proposed budget being presented on February the 9th, with hopefully budget approval on March the 23rd, with final adoption on May the 11th. With 1 work session after the BOS adoption in case we need to make any adjustments. And as Dr. Fox mentioned, of course, this is all subject to change for anything that happens at the state level. Yes, ma'am.
Before I make a motion, could it be that what is the date supposed to be in April? It says April 287.
Oh, I apologize. So that would be, if you all keep your regular board meeting schedule, I believe it is April the 28th. Of course, your board meetings could change again if you all decide to do anything different at your meeting in January. Thank you. Apologize for that typo.
I saw it when I was writing in my planner since the last meeting.
You couldn't find April 287? Or something?
You're having.
That's what it feels like in April sometimes. Thank you.
I make a motion that we approve the fiscal year '24 budget calendar.
Second. We have a motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Ms. Alger to approve the FY '24 budget calendar.
Dr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Dugal?
Yes.
Ms. Alger?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Valentin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Ryman, approval of overnight field trips.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. So we have one for Page County High School. The Technology Student Association would like to attend the Fall Leadership Camp. That's November 18th through 20th, approximately 7 students. And then unofficially, which I guess doesn't really require your approval, but just notice that, as we've mentioned, the volleyball team's headed to Coast, so they'll be overnight tomorrow. That's it.
I'll make a motion that we approve the overnight field trips for Page County High School.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Alger and a second by Mr. Dugler to approve the overnight field trips.
Mr. Dugal?
Yes.
Ms. Alger?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Valentin? Ms. Ward?
Yes. Board member discussion, Beth?
Well, I'll speak for at least my experience with meet the legislature and head over to protect. Just tell that the division and our citizens. Dr. Fox gave a presentation, very well done. She was even referenced by a couple of the guests there, so kudos to her and how she does that. Very, very impressed. I said that to her before. I'll just say it first thing out here in front of everyone. Welcome Taylor, Summer. Good to have y'all with us. It's wonderful to have a community that gives. With Sheriff Covage and Chief both did behind them. And we've got the Page County High School softball. It's just wonderful to have that. We need all of it that we can get our kids where they need to be. Thank you. Thank all those.
Second that.
All right, well, I'd like to echo what Mr. Painter said too. Dr. Fox did a wonderful job at the legislative meeting, and it was good to be there and listen to what everybody had to say, and to understand that all the school divisions are struggling with a lot of the same things we're struggling with. Mental health, I think, was brought up by pretty much everybody that spoke, all of the divisions that spoke, and Dr. Fox did a wonderful job. And welcome to our students, Summer and Jackson in Cyberland. It's exciting to have student representatives. We have Stephen Hill here this week, and he was pretty excited when Summer was telling him that she's a student rep for the school board now. So it's nice to see that we have some student voices on the board, and welcome Taylor. We're excited to have you here and have everybody here. So. And good luck to all of our teams. And I think we've got a Veterans Day Assembly, Page County High School tomorrow morning,
Yep.
which is they're set up for, so that'll be nice.
And Summer does know to ask for money now if anybody.
Yes, and she does know that. And we do live in a very generous community where, and it's going to take everybody here. A lot of people talk about what we can do in Page County with little resources, and it's because we have so many people that work together to make things happen and do things. It's a pretty great place to be.
All right, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter to adjourn.
Yes.
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 Mr. Hubler?
Yes.
Yes.